regime. The logic is simple. The more the United States is involved in the support for the Kyiv regime on the battlefield, the more probability of provoking a real nuclear confrontation. One question regards the planned NATO exercise on nuclear deterrence persistent noon, and Russia has notified on its exercises involving the launch of missiles that can carry nuclear charges. At the same time, the United States has deployed its airborne division in Romania and in Poland, and the Russian side also recently announced that it had reached an agreement with Cuba to resume use of the Ludel military base in Cuba and will relaunch an intelligence center there. What is happening is reminiscent of a repeat of the Cuban missile crisis of 60 years ago. How would you assess the global nuclear threat? You know, all the comparisons, all the details, and all the search for parallels are matters of historians. There are a lot of books on the Caribbean missile crisis. Today's events are witnessed by you. If we talk briefly and outline the main common features, I can highlight that in both cases there were destructive attempts by Washington to gain military dominance at all costs. The goal is still the same: to use any means to ensure its global dominance, to push their self-centered interests. In the 1960s of the 21st century, the deployment by the United States in Europe and Turkey of nuclear missiles targeting the Soviet Union was a reason for crisis. This time, the aggravation is provoked by the harmful for us expansion of NATO into the Eurasian space and the withdrawal from all the parity agreements in the area of security and strategic stability. Thus, then and now, the United States believed and believe that it was and is necessary to take into account our interests. They just undertook active actions to pose a real threat. As for nuclear threat, just like at the times of the Caribbean crisis, it's increasing, and we've been talking a lot about that when we've been talking about the intentions of the Kyiv regime. The logic is simple. The more the United States is involved in the support for the Kyiv regime on the battlefield, the more probability of provoking a real nuclear confrontation between the main nuclear powers, which can lead to horrible consequences. As for the differences, having faced a tough response, Washington still continues to escalate the situation, believing that it can do that without any damage to itself. It's a very dangerous approach, and it's a mistake, and I'd like to say that to prevent the worst scenario, current politicians of the United States should show the same consciousness as was manifested by the U.S. leadership at the time of the Caribbean crisis. There are no reasonable alternatives to that. This is a brief response. As for all other details and comparisons, I think that that historians are supposed to work on it. Thank you. The second question. EU foreign policy chief Josep Borrell, known for his open support of Ukraine, is currently on a tour of Latin America. Do you think that this may lead to the regional initiative of Latin American countries against Russia? So, the gardener has left its beautiful garden and has risked to visit rainforests, if we are quoting Borrell, that's how we can make a resume of his schedule. I don't want to guess what the reaction of Latin American countries will be. We are well aware of his views, and we are well aware of the views of our Latin American partners, and we are in a direct dialogue with them. We see the attempts of the EU to drag other countries into their confrontational policy, and we see that the other states are persistent. They demonstrate their sovereignty and independence. As for the EU, they use all the means, blackmailing, threats. They violate the main principle of the United Nations Charter on the sovereign equality of states, and the EU doesn't take into account national priority of other countries, their relations with Russia, historical and cultural features of our cooperation under the pretext of democratic changes, solidarization with the EU values. Brussels imposes models of economic and political development on other countries which put them under control of the West. You know that Borrell is known to the whole world by these words. He has divided the whole world into garden and jungles. He has just expressed once again in a poetic way the colonial philosophy of Western countries and its attitude to the whole world. Then he had to apologize. As for Latin American countries, our approach is clear. We are developing our interaction on a legal basis, and it's founded on the principles I've mentioned. We have an open agenda. We don't look at this region through the mirror of narrow geopolitical interests. That's not our view of the world. We are in favor of constructing bridges, ties. We are for the equality and the mutual respect. And we are against artificial walls and barriers. I'd also like to draw attention to the interview by Sergei Lavrov, Russian Foreign Minister, to Argumenty and Fakty. It has been given recently, and I will leave a link to this interview in the text of the briefing. I would like to reiterate once again that we don't make Latin countries choose between us and somebody else. We don't say that if they are not with us, they are against us. That's not like that. We will continue to develop our relations with our Latin American friends as much as we are already too.
Thanks for watching. If you like our info, subscribe to channel and watch the next video.